That's a question I'd like to present to the panel in terms of how do you go about defining these goals, especially maybe if this is a newer area of your life to you. So, for me, for example, a couple of my goals are okay, get better financially. But what does that look like? I have
Too
what I
big.
considered a year last year that wasn't ideal for me financially. But when I look at the math and I look at the paper and I look at the numbers, I'm still in a very, very good position. These were goals that I set years ago to make sure that I can handle some of these rough waters financially if things were to happen, and I was able to do so successfully. So I don't necessarily consider that a loss. But this year, it's like, okay, what do those goals look like? Probably take the plan that I had before and then scale that to a higher level to where I can have more runway or where I can take more risks and not have sort of setbacks financially when I take bold moves and then maybe they don't quite pan out. That's another goal this year, take more bold moves, but professionally, physically, and especially when it comes to the group trying to scale this thing. But what does that look like? What does more moves look like? For the fitness thing, that's good for me because I've been at that for years and years to where, okay, I want to be 190 pounds at 10% body fat. Normally I'm 10% body fat at 185 pounds. I did a mini bulk with Joel this year, probably put on 5-6 pounds. We'll probably lose a pound or two of that muscle. So around 189, 190 pounds at 10% body fat. That's something I know I can do because I have tracked everything for every cycle, for every routine, for every diet. It's all there. I just look back to my notes and see that, okay, if I do this, this happens. If I do this, this happens. So for me, that's a pretty easy one. It's like, all right, I'm just going to maintain the volume I was doing lifting wise during the bulk to hold the muscle mass and then slowly scale back on the calories to literally watch the fat shrink wrap around you. But that's something I know. And the finance thing, maybe not necessarily so much. I don't know maybe how to start defining those goals. What does that look like? What's the right way? What's the wrong way? So the question I'd like to pose to the panel is, how do you go about finding those goals? Is it a good idea to start with the ones that you can really dial into the details on, for me, such as for my physical goal, and then go down to the ones where you're like, okay, another one, I'd like to see my family more. Well, what does that look like? That's been my goal for the last few years. And I have done that, but is that more frequency? Is that more contact time? Is that more face time, whether that be digitally mediated? So that's a question I'd like to throw out to everyone there.
I mean, in my industry, we have a saying that, you can't measure what you aren't monitoring. So how do you know how to measure your success or your check-in points or your milestones if you don't have a plan? So that's why having a plan is absolutely essential, because you need to make sure that you have tangible steps, but you also have tangible milestones. So hey, it's going to take 5 steps in order for me to get here. Well, I'm at step 1, or I'm at step 2, or I'm at step 3. Imagine trying to navigate to a destination, right? You're trying to drive from, say, Los Angeles to Chicago, but none of the roads or freeways have any signs or any markings. You're not going to know how to get to where you're trying to get to because you have no frame of reference. You have no direction. Do I turn here? Do I get on this freeway for how many miles? So that's absolutely what a plan does, is it charts out an actual pathway for you. And that's why it's an absolute essential part of your success in any process that you have. So, for a lot of you guys out there, definitely say, now is the time to really look at and focus on getting those aspects and those plans. And definitely excited to work with a lot of guys over the course of this year on really getting into the details of their plan and, really start challenging people too on their plans. Because a lot of times it's like, well, I got a plan and you have one kind of vague sort of step or goal in there. But, again, if you're trying to, get to a certain physique, you can't just go to your personal trainer. Well, I just want to be ripped with a 6-pack abs. Okay, great. Well, first thing they're going to ask you is what are you currently eating? What's your eat cycle looking like? How many calories you're taking in a day? What exactly are you eating? When exactly are you eating it? They're going to break down the real specifics of everything. And so that's what you have to do with your plans as well. You have to start getting very specific and break out what those steps are going to be and what they're going to look like. And yeah, it's not the most fun part of the process, but when you take a step back and you actually look at what you have, now you actually have something that's really exciting, because instead of just, oh, I have this dream that's all the way over here and I have my starting point, which is where I currently am at, you actually have a clear pathway that you can see. And you can also make adjustments to that plan and that strategy as you're going through, because hey, sometimes, changes are going to happen, or you try a certain thing and it doesn't necessarily go exactly the way you want it to, but it's okay because now you have another destination or another road to pivot to. So if you're driving from LA to Chicago and one road is closed, well, guess what? GPS is going to reroute you to the next road, right? But if you don't have any of those that map or anything out there, well, now you're just at a roadblock and you're stuck, and that can get you really demoralized real quick.